Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Darth Gabe.
And I am Master Jeff.
We're going to answer your questions today. But first, Master Jeff.
Yes.
I have a question for you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Sorry, I paused there for a moment because I was trying to think of a way to turn Jeff into Jedi, but
we're trying to figure out different Star Wars puns. This is going to be a Star Wars
but
episode.
First things first, there will be no spoilers, no Last Jedi spoilers.
Yeah.
At all. If there's anything that we say while during our discussion, I will bleep it out or something.
Sure. Yeah.
I do not want anybody to not listen to this episode because of not having seen the movie.
Yeah. I'll do my best not to say it, just so you don't have to edit it out. But
yes.
Yeah, no spoilers.
Yeah. Because I'll get into what's been going on in just a moment. But we both saw The Last Jedi yesterday.
Right.
When this episode goes out, this episode is going to go out actually the day after Christmas. But as of this recording, Jeff and I just saw the movie, and we also have a question regarding the Star Wars role-playing games. So that's basically what this episode is going to be about.
Yeah.
So if you're not at all interested in Star Wars, I apologize. Maybe listen to it if you still like hearing us talk. If you hate everything Star Wars, then I don't know. Listen to last week's episode again or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to you if you absolutely hate all things Star Wars.
I can understand some people not liking how it's like, okay, Doctor Who. I've never really watched Doctor Who.
Sure.
But every time someone recommends it to me, I'm like, there's so much. No, I'm not going to watch it because there's so much that I feel I would have to get into in order to watch it.
Don't have time to get into a whole new world.
Yeah, and also maybe you have issues with the types of people who are obsessed with everything Star Wars.
Sure.
You say a character's name wrong. They're like, no, that was this other character, and then they were in this other thing, and so on and so on. So I apologize if you do not like Star Wars. However, I have a reasonable liking for Star Wars.
Yeah, same here.
So yeah, we felt like having a Star Wars episode.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it is, when this episode comes out, it's the day after Christmas. I hope everybody out there had a wonderful Christmas. If you celebrate Christmas, if not, I hope you had a wonderful whatever you do celebrate.
Yeah.
Hopefully you got some time off work.
Good holiday season for everybody.
Yeah. It's been kind of crazy. We had a whole lot of snow for a few days. And then today it was like 50 degrees outside.
Yeah, it was warm today.
Yeah. So I'm wearing shorts right now.
Yeah, I bumped into Gabe at the grocery store today, just a little while ago, and he was loading his car in shorts and a t-shirt.
But the thing is, by the time that you saw me, it was
cold again,
high 30s.
Yeah, it was warmer earlier in the day.
Yes, so. It was super sunny. It was super warm out. I was like, I'm gonna wear some shorts. I'm not gonna wear a jacket. And then it got cloudy and windy and. Anyway, today at the library, the Garden City Library, I was going to be doing another D&D thing. So I was, I had a Christmas adventure planned.
Oh, nice.
However, nobody showed up, or rather, one person showed up, and then apparently, I called it quits because only one person had showed up 15 minutes in, and it's harder to run a one-person game than a two-person game. Yeah, for example. So sure. He was okay with it. I told him we would just not do it this month and do another next month. But apparently another person showed up an hour later expecting to play D&D. It was scheduled for 4. And only going until 5, and they showed up at 5.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well.
Anyway, so I didn't get to run that, but I'll tell you what it was about, what it was going to be about. I think I might have mentioned, I know I put on Twitter last month for Thanksgiving. I had a Thanksgiving themed adventure where the players went to a harvest festival. And then at the Harvest Festival, a group of goblins showed up, including a goblin necromancer who raised the roast turkey as a zombie. So the players had to fight a giant
gobble
roast turkey. Gabe turkey sound. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Anyway.
Gobble, gobble, gobble.
Yeah. See, now you're gonna disrupt the actual sound clip that I put in.
Oh no!
Because that sound clip sounded like me just saying. And anyway. But for this one, I was going to be doing a Christmas themed one. So the way it was going to go was that the players were going to get hired to watch over this warehouse that they were awaiting. They were awaiting an important shipment, and it hadn't arrived yet. So they were going to have the players stay there overnight and just make sure if it got there safely. Well, while there, they were going to hear a noise up on the roof.
Oh.
So they go up onto the roof, and there is some sort of like a really, really long sleigh that has landed on top of this warehouse. But when they get there, they're attacked by two very large, basically reindeer. Attack them. So they fight off the reindeer. As they do, they notice that the sleigh is like starting to fly away. So they run after it. They jump on top of it. They climb along this like flying sleigh. They eventually find a man in a red cloak,
Ooh.
a wizard with a long white beard in a red cloak that has been tied up.
Oh no.
And he asks them for their help. Eventually they climb their way to the front of this flying sleigh, and they encounter the Krampus.
Oh.
So like, this big demonic figure with horns and like
Right.
chains and whatnot, like a big bunch of sticks that he beats them with and so on. So they were going to beat Krampus, and then the red-robed gentleman was going to tell them, I have to make all of these deliveries tonight. I need your help. And so the end of the adventure was going to be them going off to help this mysterious wizard Nicholas.
Yeah.
To deliver
The Archmage Nicholas.
the Archmage Nicholas, yes.
Very good.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna do, but I didn't.
Well,
And I mean, it wouldn't make as much sense to do that next month. So instead, next month I'm gonna do something else.
oh well.
Yeah.
I guess Christmas is dead.
It is. My goodness, it's horrible. Well, I mean, again, by the time this episode comes out, Christmas will have come and gone. So
So yeah, Christmas is past.
yeah, it's a ghost
Yeah.
of Christmas past. Anyway.
Anyway.
So Jeff, do you feel like getting into the episode? Anything else you want to?
Sure. No.
And by the way, we will be talking a lot about Star Wars, but again, we will not be spoiling the movie. We might say very cryptic things about the movie that we thought were awesome, but we will not. I guarantee you, we will not in any way say anything that is a spoiler. I will be extra careful not to allow anything that is
like
could be taken as a spoiler.
Gave like that one part where.
I'm gonna bleep that all out, just so you know. Yeah, that was crazy. And then when used the so that he could with and
Whoa! Wait. What? That was the part with right?
yes, it was. That was when you went to the bathroom and then.
Oh, I missed that. Yeah.
Anyway, so Jeff, I want you to imagine that you wake up on December 25th.
Ooh.
And
I've been sleeping for a long time.
You have. When this episode comes out, you will have been sleeping for -1 days. So you wake up, you look outside the window, and it is snowy out.
Ooh.
You're snowed in. If you had to work today, you don't have to work today anymore.
Awesome.
And you're like, I'm just going to take this day. I'm going to relax. You go downstairs and you see that some joker has cut down a tree and put it in your living room.
Wait, so like the Jack Nicholson Joker or the...
Oh, yeah. Yes. The Joker.
Yeah.
The Joker, played by Mark Hamill.
Oh, the Mark Hamill.
Voiced by Mark Hamill.
Voiced by Mark Hamill.
Cuts down a tree and put it in your living room.
Oh, man.
Not only that, but he left a bunch of boxes under the tree.
Who would do such a crazy thing?
I don't know.
The Joker, maybe.
The Joker, I guess, yeah. But you figure, let me, it's snowy out. Maybe you'll need some supplies. Maybe you can't get to the store. Might as well open up one of these boxes and see what's in it.
Could be something useful. Well, I'll start opening up those packages.
Okay, you open up that package, and when you do, suddenly a glint of gold and silver hits your eyes.
Ooh.
You open it up, and you realize that in these boxes, in several small containers, is altogether the Dragon's Hoard.
Oh, man.
I don't know.
I wanted a Nintendo Switch.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Dragon's Hoard for today. The item is actually, we did have a couple submissions, but this is one that I chose to go with the theme of the episode. This is actually an item from the Dungeon Master's Guide, the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide. So the item that I'm going to be talking about today is a magic weapon. Mm-hmm. Again, it is in the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide. It's also been in other Dungeon Master's Guides as well, but this is this particular one. This is a sword called the Sunblade.
Oh, yeah.
The Sunblade is a long sword, and it requires attunement. Mm-hmm. This item appears to be a long sword hilt. Ooh. While grasping the hilt, you can use a bonus action to cause a blade of pure radiance to spring into existence or make the blade disappear. While the blade persists, this magic longsword has the finesse property. If you are proficient with short swords or long swords, you are proficient with the Sunblade. You gain a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this weapon, which deals radiant damage instead of slashing damage.
Nice.
When you hit an undead with it, the target takes an extra 1d8 radiant damage. The sword's luminous blade emits bright light in a 15-foot radius and dim light for an additional 15 feet. The light is sunlight. While the blade persists, you can use an action to expand or reduce its radius of bright and dim light by 5 feet each to a maximum of 30 feet each, or a minimum of 10 feet each.
Whoa. So that's considered sunlight. That's
It
cool.
is apparently considered sunlight, so I imagine it would give penalties to drow. It would be especially harmful to vampires.
Sure.
Yeah, Sith Lords.
Sith Lords.
So obviously I chose this because it is very clearly a 5th edition or just a Dungeons and Dragons version of a lightsaber.
Right, yeah. And like I think we talked about in the past like trying to recreate different magical weapons from different, different things, like, and like the lightsaber always ends up being a little overpowered in people's minds.
Right. I'm sure we all know somebody. I know you and I know somebody who would argue that a lightsaber is, would be so much more powerful, and it would not only ignore armor to your AC, but it would destroy your armor in the process, and so on and so on. I actually did do a quick Google search on to see if there was a homebrew version, a popular homebrew version of a lightsaber out there, and the one that I found is 3d10 force damage. And
Force damage.
I mean, force damage, that makes sense. Don't get me wrong.
No,
but,
no, I don't. I get it. It's force damage, like the Force, but I don't think that would. I don't know if it'd be force damage.
It's not quite the same. I think radiant is a much better way to. Better way to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's sort of heat.
Yeah.
But it doesn't burn things. It just kind of cuts through them and whatever. So any thoughts on the Sunblade or on lightsabers in general?
They're pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll even say I have only ever used I've played a VR game once. Last year, I have a cousin, one of my wife's cousin's husbands is always the guy who has the newest gadgets and whatnot.
Sure. And
they always have this Christmas party in either December or January, and he always brings whatever the newest gadget is he has. And last year he brought an HTC Vive, I think it's called.
Yep.
And he just anybody who wanted to try out. He didn't have a ton of games for it, but anybody who did want to try it out could. So it was the first time I'd ever used VR, and I tried a couple little ones where you just stand on the deck of a ship and look at all you're underwater. You're on the deck of the Titanic. And you look around and see fish floating around, and you can't really interact with anything. But there was one little demo he had where you were fixing the Millennium Falcon, and then a bunch of stormtroopers show up surrounding you, and they're all shooting at you. And then you realize that the thing you're holding is a lightsaber. And so you turn on the lightsaber, and then the whole game is you're just deflecting blaster shots while the Millennium Falcon's powering up or whatever.
Oh, sure.
And I really liked it because I was only holding essentially a sword handle in my hand.
Sure, yeah.
So similar to using what an actual lightsaber would be, the blade didn't have any weight.
Right, yeah.
And I really liked how that was, that was more accurate than if I was I'm holding a sword.
Right, yeah. That's a good point. That's a more accurate simulation of a lightsaber than the toys.
Yeah. And I mean, heck, lightsabers are cool. When we saw the movie yesterday, I said something that made me sound really dumb. I think I said it to you and our friend Steve. I said that I really like bright colors. Right?
Sure.
If you put a screen in front of me that is bright colors on a dark contrasting background, I'll be happy. No matter what it is I'm looking at, bright flashing colors and a dark background makes me feel good.
That's that's just a different way to say that you have an appreciation for art, I guess.
I suppose
that's just a different way to say.
It could just be my lizard brain, responding to
I like flashy colors.
Stimuli. Yeah, I just I love lightsaber battles.
Yeah, they're fun.
Not just because of the flashing colors, but usually they're really well choreographed. And, it's really cool. When they get a little bit too acrobatic, that kind of bothers me. Like there were, again, no spoilers, but there were some lightsaber fights in The Last Jedi.
Spoilers!
And I did not feel that any of them were too acrobatic.
Right, yeah, they didn't go overboard. Because, like, the prequels did have that issue. And, like it wasn't just, like, it was the prequels and it was the... I remember hearing something that, like, George Lucas kind of got upset that, like, the video games for the Star Wars... even for the original... trilogy, not the prequels, but like the video games for the like original trilogy and stuff like that. The acrobatics of the Jedi got a little out of hand.
Yeah.
But he kind of had to kind of go with it that way, just because like I don't know, that was the popular image of a Jedi at a point, because like the movies there was only 3 movies, but then there were so many games that came out for
Definitely, yeah.
So it kind of had to keep up with it, and that's why like there was a lot more jumping around and acrobatics and stuff in the prequel movies.
And I mean, to be fair, when I first saw episode 2, I thought the fight between Yoda and Dooku was awesome.
Yeah.
Yoda was jumping and flipping and doing all this crazy stuff.
Spoilers game.
Yes.
For Attack of the Clones.
And I mean, that was cool at the time, but like, yeah, looking back, especially when compared to the original trilogy, which had basic, I mean, I think like the biggest stunt there was like Luke jumped off of something and did a somersault in the air.
Yeah.
And then there was another point where Darth Vader threw his lightsaber. Those were like the two big stunts in the whole original trilogy.
Right, yeah.
So looking back, like those ones didn't really need it. Then again, you could make the argument that the maybe it makes sense within the story that they used to be really like acrobatic and whatnot, and then in Revenge of the Sith, everybody died.
Yeah.
And so all the people that were all acrobatic died, so the only people that were left to do it was basically just Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And then he just didn't bother to teach Luke all the crazy jumps
old
and
man
stuff.
and basically a cripple. Like
exactly.
Like,
and Yoda, of course. Yeah.
And Yoda. An even older man.
Right.
So like, I don't think they're going to be jumping around much.
Yeah. So I really I think lightsabers are really cool. I think that it is a great idea for a futuristic weapon that still functions like a normal weapon, and like a fantasy weapon enough. Mm-hmm. It's basically a sword. Yeah. Functions like a sword in almost every way, but also it serves as a weapon against more advanced weapons. Like you can use it to deflect lasers.
Right.
So not only is it a primitive weapon, it's a primitive weapon that you can use to fight against advanced weapons.
Yeah. It's a forward compatible sword.
Yes. I remember there was this short, I want to say it was like a short animated GIF a while back, like long time ago. Back before there was YouTube, I remember seeing this. Mm-hmm. There was this video of this kid. It's like this kid on Christmas morning. Mm-hmm. So I guess this is a timely reference. He opens up a box and then he just starts going crazy. He starts getting so excited, and you see he has a lightsaber in his hand, and like the beam shoots out of the thing, and he's like jumping around with it, and he cuts his grandma in half, and he's like jumping up and down with it.
I think I've seen that, yeah.
But it's like really low quality, so it almost looks like a home video.
Right. Horizons.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, so we're not even really talking about the Sunblade. The Sunblade, like we said, is basically a lightsaber in D&D. I remember in 3rd edition, I don't think it was a brilliant energy weapon in 3rd edition, but there were brilliant energy weapons in 3rd edition. So in 3rd edition, the Sunblade itself was not quite as lightsabery. It was basically just like a sword it was a sword that gave off light, and then you could use it as either a longsword or a short sword, whichever one was more advantageous to you.
Sure.
But then there was also a special property you could apply to any weapon that made it what was called brilliant energy. And when a weapon was brilliant energy, it ignored armor and natural armor, I believe.
Huh.
So, or maybe it didn't. Whatever it was, it ignored non-living matter. So it ignored normal. I don't think it was natural armor, actually. I don't think it ignored that. But it ignored regular armor. So like if you're wearing full plate, it passed through your full plate. So it hit your AC as if you were not wearing full plate.
Yeah.
However, it did not affect objects or undead.
Huh.
Because it just passed through non-living matter.
Oh,
so you
sure.
couldn't use it to cut down a sword, or cut down a door like you could with a lightsaber, because it would just pass through it. I know a lot of people house ruled it to, whatever. Or some people even house ruled it so you could turn off the brilliant energy property so that if you were fighting undead, you could use your sword and just not gain that property of it. But as it was written, you couldn't. Once you turned it on, it was like once you did it, it was that way. Huh. And it was kind of goofy because if you were to, in theory, make like a brilliant energy club, and then you dropped it, whoops,
it just fell through
the planet. And I kind of imagine with a weapon like that, your scabbard would have to be like some sort of living creature.
Oh, right, yeah. Because
otherwise, what are you gonna do?
It's just like a pelican or something. Like,
yeah. That's horrifying. But it's a living.
It's a Flintstones joke.
Yes, that is a Flintstones joke.
Wow.
Anyway, so I think that's it for the Dragon's Horde. The Sunblade is a lightsaber. We'll talk more about lightsabers as we go.
And the Flintstones is a cartoon from like the 40s. I can't remember.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
Long time ago. They had a commercial for cigarettes.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yep.
I think it was like Lucky Strikes or whatever.
I think so, yeah. All right, so if anybody wanted to submit magic items for the Dragon's Horde, or questions for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre, how would they do so?
They could send us a email at the address.
What is that address?
Shoot, I had it in my head.
Crit Academy at Google.
No, that's not it. No, okay. It's InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
There you go.
That's the one.
Speaking of Crit Academy, though, I do want to tell everybody to go check out our friend podcasts on the Crit Nation Fellowship. CritAcademy.com that's a great podcast. Justin, Ian, and Brandon. I think Brandon was out for a while. His wife had a child or something like that. But I believe he's back.
Oh well,
as of this recording,
congrats.
Maybe not. Well, yeah. So if not, he'll be back soon. So Justin, Ian, and Brandon. Great hosts, great podcast. They give you new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. Then also D&D Character Lab, fun podcast. Garen and Dan, they make characters and 5th edition characters, and then they pit them against each other to see whose characters are better.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. Also go to audibletrial.com/conflict. Get yourself a free audiobook and get us some free money while you're at it. All right, so want to get into the question for today?
Sure. Okay, our question for today comes from Cethia on Paizo. They ask, pros and cons of various Star Wars systems. So there's the WEG, which is the D6 system. There's the D20 system, and then there's the FFG
system or systems, because there's a few different rule
I think
books
there's
like
a couple of them.
Yeah. So full disclosure, I have only ever played D20, Star Wars D20, and I only played it a little bit. And Jeff, I don't think, have you played any of these?
No, not. I think I've looked at the book for the D20 one.
Okay,
but that's about it.
So we haven't played any of these. However, I did crowdsource the answer to this one a while back. We got this question. This was one of the first questions we got.
Oh, wow.
And because we didn't have, I don't know what the various pros and cons are.
Sure.
And I don't have time to learn all of these different systems in addition to everything else that I have to do. So I asked about this on Reddit. I said, hey guys, I'm doing this podcast. We want to talk about what the various advantages and disadvantages are of the different Star Wars RPGs, but I've never played them. And a gentleman by the name of Ross, who has a podcast, Dice for Brains, which is a Star Wars role-playing game podcast.
Okay.
I believe it is the FFG system, which we'll talk about. So Ross sent me a message. He said, hey, I'm running this thing for this podcast. I have one of our members would love to write up a big long thing for you. So DJ Wright is the name of the gentleman who actually did write up this big long article. I will link it in the show notes, but we will kind of paraphrase a lot of what the pros and cons are of the different systems for you guys. And then if you want more information, you can read this article. If you want more than that, I can, you can let me know and I could try to get you in contact with some of these people. So there are 3 main Star Wars RPGs that we're going to be talking about. And I very recently got an email from somebody actually that was asking, having listened to just a few of our episodes, like, hey, do you guys just talk about D&D or do you talk about other systems too? And definitely a valid question. When we started making this podcast, I originally hoped that this podcast would be as system agnostic as possible.
Sure. Yeah.
In that anybody playing any kind of role-playing game could listen to it. That being said, we do get most of our content from they are submissions from listeners asking, what they want. D&D is the most popular RPG, and it's also the game that Jeff and I have the most experience with.
Right, yeah.
So as a result, most of our content is about Dungeons & Dragons, mostly 5th edition. But there's no reason that we can't answer questions about other games, just if it is a game that we don't have experience with, like we're doing with this question here. We will try to get the information and bring it to you in a way that we can.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll do our best.
Yes. So if anybody has any questions about other systems, if you have, we've brought in several funeral pyre stories that people have submitted from different systems as well. And heck, if there are magic items from other systems or an equivalent to magic items from other systems, I would love to get some of those from listeners too.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything that you guys have from other systems, feel free to send them in. Worst thing that happens is you just got to wait a while until we can
figure it out,
and then we can, so that we can have a satisfying answer for you guys.
Sure.
So for this, we're going to try to talk about the pros and cons of the 3 main different Star Wars RPGs. Mm-hmm. So the 3 that we're going to be talking about is Star Wars D6, which is by West End Games, so WEG. After that, we're going to be talking about D20 Star Wars, which, like I said, is what I've had a little bit of experience with. I will share my thoughts and my experiences as well as what DJ Wright sent to us. And then the last one is Fantasy Flight Games, Age of Rebellion, Edge of the Empire, and Force and Destiny, which, unless I am mistaken, they are 3 separate rule books for the same system. I believe that's what that is.
Okay.
I think Force and Destiny, like I've seen a lot of people talk about Force and Destiny as like the best one, or like the one that they play. So I think Force and Destiny is the most popular one.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so first we are going to talk briefly about West End Games Star Wars D6. Mm-hmm. So DJ Wright's article was mostly about the 2nd edition of the WEG Star Wars role-playing game, the blue one, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's referring to that to. Maybe that's just the color of the book.
Probably just different editions, or different printings or whatever. So this game is fairly straightforward. In this game, you have a series of attributes. All of your skills are tied to one of those. Anything that you require a roll, you grab a bunch of D6s equal to your attribute plus your skill, and then you roll them. And then there's some others like partial dice called pips that you might roll at times. But basically, you're just trying to roll all these D6s to try to get a target number.
So yeah, with the D6 system, you just roll just a big old handful of D6.
Yeah. I've played some games that are not necessarily D6s, but like you have a bunch of dice that you are able to roll in certain situations. And then anyway, some things that are good about this system is exploding dice. Exploding dice is it's actually a concept that's in other games too. Like I've seen it in like house rules for D20 systems. Mm-hmm. The idea with an exploding die is that, well, I'll say how it works in this game. In this game, the 2nd edition of the D6 one, it introduces a wild die. So it's a different color die that you roll as part of your dice pool. Mm-hmm. If it comes up as a 1, you remove it along with the highest die you rolled. So like if you rolled a bunch of like 3s and 4s and 1 6, but then the wild die comes up as a 1, you take out the 6. However, if the wild die comes up as a 6, you add that 6 to the total and then you roll it again. So like it's possible for you to get another 6 and then another 6 and then another 6 and so on. So like I've heard of a lot of games that use some sort of an exploding die mechanic, in that if you get the highest result, you roll it again and add that. And then this one also has the drawback of having a 1 take away.
Sure, yeah. So
and so it's kind of neat, because even if the odds are against you, it's theoretically possible for you to roll however high you need to, because there's always that chance you might get a 6 on that wild die.
I guess it's sort of the D6 way of like doing like criticals or something like that.
Yeah. I've actually heard a lot of people in D&D use an exploding die instead of a natural 20 as a crit. Or like instead of a natural 20 as an automatic hit, they'll have it be that if you roll a 20, you roll it again and add that. So like it's possible if something has like a really, really high AC for you to roll a natural 20 and not hit, because even with the additional roll, like you still might not quite get high enough.
Sure.
I've heard a lot of people complain, in my opinion, kind of erroneously, that like, oh, if a first level blind commoner attacked Thor and got a natural 20, he would still hit. I mean, yeah, technically that's true, but like, how's a first level blind commoner getting in melee range of Thor?
Right, yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so this game has exploding dice, which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is that WEG has no class system.
Right, yeah, you just kind of pick your skills and what you want to do, and you build your character from there. I think they show like templates and stuff like that. To kind of give you an idea of like this. If you want to be a smuggler type character, you would take these skills. But other than that, you just kind of do what you want to do.
And we've talked about that before. I think somebody asked like, what are our thoughts on having like a class based system as opposed to like a points based system? Mm-hmm. I actually personally prefer classes. Personally, I understand if someone would prefer otherwise, but to me, I feel like if my abilities are not assigned to me, then there's going to be some of them that I would never take. Even though they might be good, I will never take them because they are not as appealing to me in the moment.
Sure.
So that's just my own personal preference. But a lot of people have issues with classes. So let them do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, some people see it as restricting or something. But it's just when you're giving too many options, sometimes you end up taking too many of the wrong options.
Yeah. Another thing that's great about this game is that being a Force user in this D6 system is really, really fun. It's frustrating at first because I guess the points that you have to split among your like normal abilities and your Force abilities.
Sure.
So compared to a non-Force user at low levels or low whatever the beginning of the campaign is, you might seem a little underpowered because you kind of have like half and half.
Right, yeah.
But as you level up, I guess like similar to the wizard in Dungeons and Dragons, you can get super duper powerful and be really good at everything.
Right, because like I guess as like a Force user, you still want to be able to like do normal things. Like you don't want
like Luke can still pilot a plane.
Right, yeah.
And he can still repair stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, but only having the same amount of points to be putting into both your Force stuff and your normal stuff.
Sure.
So it takes a little while, but as DJ says, that like you get pretty dang powerful.
Yeah.
Towards the end of your character development.
To the point where, small spoiler, not a Last Jedi spoiler. Small spoiler for what we're going to talk about in about 30 seconds. That's actually one of the cons of this system, is that Force users can get a little bit too powerful.
Sure.
So I guess we'll actually get right into that right now. One of the cons is that Force users are really, really powerful.
Yeah, they'll get overpowered later on in the game.
Yeah, to the point where DJ refers to his game as devolving into a Jedi and his companions.
Right.
Which, I mean, that can happen.
It's kind of how like the stories of Star Wars kind of feel sometimes.
It kind of is.
Yeah, it's just like you have this like powerful Jedi and then all of his companions. And
I really liked in Force Awakens, so I guess small Force Awakens spoilers. Mm-hmm. Small, I'm not anything big, small stuff. But like, I really liked the first half of The Force Awakens because there isn't, aside from the bad guy, Kylo Ren, there isn't any Force use. It's basically just like Finn escapes with Poe. Uh-huh. He meets up with Rey. Then they fly the mechanical Falcon, the Millennium Falcon. They meet Han and Chewie and blah, 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 and all that. And it's really cool. It's just about like characters just being characters. And then, near the end of The Force Awakens, it becomes about Force stuff.
Sure.
And then, no spoilers, but there is a lot of Force stuff in The Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
So, not that that's bad, but I do like when there is times where it's not about the Force.
Right, yeah, because there is a lot more to like the Star Wars universe other than just Jedi and Sith.
Right. As much as the story sometimes does feel like it's just about the Jedi and the Sith.
Right, yeah. It's definitely, that is a focal point, is the war between the Jedi and the Sith.
Yeah.
Like, because it's, even going back to like the old Republic stuff, like where that's all Jedi versus Sith.
Yeah. That can be a downside to this system, is that Force users are just really, really popular. Another con of this system is that you end up getting really, really big dice pools, which are fun, but then I guess you use your dice pools to make actions, and so you can just let yourself do a whole bunch of actions. You'll take penalties, but you have so many dice that you can mitigate those penalties. And so as players get better and better at what they're doing, combat gets a little silly. Just combat takes forever. Similar to like in D&D, you just have so many things that you can do on your round because you have all of these dice that you can use to do stuff.
Yeah, you're always like scanning your sheet, like what else can I do on this turn? What else can I do in this turn?
Yeah, so even though the system is quite simple, it can feel like it's very complicated because you end up doing so many things, every time you take an action.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very simple, but it builds up, it snowballs a bit where stuff gets kind of crazy. Because like it from what I understand, from what I can take from this is you can take penalties to do more things in one round. And so you just have so many dice, so you're just like, okay, I'm gonna shoot that guy and then throw a bomb at that guy and then use a force power at that guy. And,
right.
And it's like, and this all happened within 3 seconds.
Yeah. Really though, I mean, I think that's kind of just indicative of any RPG where you get into high levels. Yeah. Eventually you're going to have more options than you did early on. If not, what's the point of leveling? And so in any game where you do level up, where you do grow in power, eventually there is going to be a point where combat takes longer because you just have so many more things that you can do. So I don't necessarily think that's a specific knock against this system, but maybe it's less a problem in the FFG system or so on.
So simple, but can snowball. It can be a little unbalanced, especially with like the force users. Yeah. But otherwise seems like a pretty
solid system.
Yes, it seems a lot of fun with the freedom and everything. Like the idea that you can basically just kind of choose whatever you want.
And then DJ compares. So for each of these three, he compares it to the other two.
Sure.
So it's asking, how does it compare to D20? How does the D6 system compare to D20? West End Game Star Wars is much better than D20. DJ says it's more unbalanced, but the rules are easier to understand. Mm-hmm. And it felt more like Star Wars, which I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that the game feels like the source material.
Right, yeah. Like if you're going to make a Star Wars RPG, it should feel like Star Wars.
Yeah.
There was a video game, Star Wars Galaxies. It was an MMO. It was actually one of the first MMOs I ever played. Yeah. And it would it was based in Star Wars. You played like different Star Wars races and had blasters and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, at least in its early years, it didn't necessarily feel very Star Wars because there wasn't a whole lot of Star Wars stuff going on.
Yeah.
It was a computer game, where you had you're building up, you had professions instead of classes and stuff like that. So you build up skills and craft things and everything like that. But there was a lot of detail to it. And it was pretty complex, but it was so complex that you were you kind of got lost in it and forgot that it was a Star Wars game.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, if it's a good game in and of itself, that's great.
I mean, they released it too early and it wasn't fully developed when they released it, but I still had a blast with it. I played it for 2 straight years.
My goodness.
And it was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And they eventually started adding more Star Wars-y stuff, but they also kind of changed up the rules a lot.
Yeah, that's going to happen with games like that. And then, so how does this compare to FFG, which we'll get to after D20? Mm-hmm. DJ says that FFG is the best one, but if he couldn't play FFG, he'd be playing WEG. He'd be playing West End games. So there are some balance issues in the West End games D6 version. So that kind of is a knock against it a little bit, but it's still good. It's still the second best of these three, I guess. Yeah. All right, so next we're going to talk about the Wizards of the Coast D20 Star Wars. Yeah. And, there are a lot of different editions of this, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, we're talking about Wizards of the Coast.
We are. So we are going to be compressing a lot of this and kind of judging it all by, basically 1 or 2 of the rule books. So this isn't going to be there. You might have wildly different experiences with the D20 system, but... we're basically going off of how DJ Wright feels this one measures up against the others.
Sure. Yeah.
So how does it play? Pretty good. I mean, it's a D20 system. If you are familiar with D&D, enough to play D&D, you will be able to play this with some tweaking. From what I recall, this one used a vitality and wound point system.
Okay.
Which is slightly different than hit points.
Sure.
In that you have vitality points, which, hits can make, you can get hit and make your vitality points go away, but you're not actually taking physical damage until those run out, and then you start taking wound point damage.
Okay.
And then vitality points come back a lot faster than wound points.
Okay. So it's almost like having shields and
I think so. Yeah.
and health.
Yeah. So with this one, there are classes, because it is basically space D&D.
Right. Yeah.
So there are classes, there's feats, there are skills from what I recall, probably different versions of skills depending on which version of the D20 system you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
First level characters in this system feel a bit more capable than first level characters in the D6 system. And even the DJ says even the canon characters, the examples of Luke and so on, still don't seem to be super all powerful like they did before. So that's cool. If you can play, you could play a character from the movies and still feel balanced with other players of your level.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, it's not like playing Thor from Deities and Demigods.
Right. But hey, if that first level commoner gets up to you, he's going to hit you on that natural 20.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so I personally have had a little bit of experience playing this. I played with some friends. I was in a musical a long time ago, Damn Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of the guys that were in that lived not too far from us, maybe 20 minutes away. And so I played a couple sessions with them at their game. And it was fun, I guess. It's just that I was not nearly as well versed in Star Wars as they all were. Mm. So they would be making references to all sorts of stuff. They'd be like, oh, hey, let's go to the blank system. Let's go to the blobbity blue system and talk to blah, blah, blah.
Oh, the blobbity blue system.
Exactly. And this is not stuff that they had encountered in that campaign. It was just stuff that they knew from the actual series, from Star Wars.
Right. And they're probably pulling from the expanded universe and stuff like that.
Exactly. And so I didn't know, and I felt very unable to participate in any of the conversations because I just didn't know any of this.
Sure.
And I mean, to be fair, if I was playing in a group that was playing Forgotten Realms and they were all really well versed in Forgotten Realms, it would have been the same way.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
It's not a knock against Star Wars or against this game. It was just, that group, they knew themselves really well. They knew each other really well. And I don't know. I don't think I was a good fit for that group.
Well, you should just play a character that's equally, ignorant of the Star Wars universe.
I guess I was playing a Wookiee, and so I didn't have to talk. that was good.
You just growled and stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, and I would only do that occasionally, and only when there was another guy in the group that was playing a Wookiee, and he would make Wookiee noises all the time. So I felt a little bit more comfortable occasionally making a Wookiee noise.
Well, I mean, and so many people understand the Wookiee language, it's just...
I guess. So, like we said, this is a D20 system. So if you are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or anything else that uses a D20, you'll be able to pick this up pretty easily.
Sure.
And you can probably use it to run a game, pretty easily. It's D20 is a very, I think it's kind of complicated, but once you know how to use it,
yeah,
it's an open sandbox. You can use it for all sorts of things.
Right. Yeah. Because it's complicated. It's complicated because they're trying to let you do pretty much anything you want.
Right. They try to have
manner. Yeah.
Right. They try to have rules for everything.
Right. There
which
you go.
Is good and it's bad.
Yeah.
Because there's sometimes where the rules just get in the way. There's sometimes where, the rules can't have everything. So there's going to be stuff that is kind of clunky. But anyway, getting into what DJ Wright says is good about it is, well, I mean, not really anything. It's not a bad system. It's just, it is passable at just about everything it tries to do.
It's D20. It's wizards.
Yeah. Everybody is about as balanced as they could make them. So regardless of what class you are, regardless of whether you're a force user or not a force user, you can all participate and contribute, which is a good thing, I would say. It's all about character advancement. You want to get to the next level because you want to get, your next abilities and so on. So maybe this game sort of leans more towards a more mechanical game rather than a more story-based game.
Sure.
But that's gonna vary depending on who you are in your group and so on. It is worth noting that this game is what Knights of the Old Republic was based on. The Knights of the Old Republic games.
Oh, right, yeah.
They were all based on, this rule set.
Oh,
so
okay.
if you were to play a Knights of the Old Republic video game, it is behind the scenes a D20 system, which, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I want to say, I want to say that that it's like the people who like did like the Neverwinter Nights games and the Baldur's Gate games, I think they worked on. I might be completely wrong on that. Anyway,
I'm not sure.
But it's same deal as like, you have like a D20 system running in the background of different RPG games.
Yeah. Small tangent. Did you know that the Fallout series was originally meant to be based on the rule set of Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh, yeah?
The special stats were originally going to be strength, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, intelligence, and charisma.
Yeah. Huh, cool.
Yeah, but then they couldn't get the rights or something at the last minute, so they were like, well, fine, we'll just make our own game that's the exact same thing, but better.
Right, yeah, but special.
Exactly. There you go.
But yeah, I do like the special system. I think that's fun.
Yeah. So again, what's great about it? Not really anything. It's passable at whatever it does. It's not. It's a D20 system. It's nicely balanced. What do you expect? What's terrible about it is kind of the same thing. It's not terrible at anything. It's not great at anything. It is more mechanically oriented than thematically oriented. So your games are most likely going to end up being more about character advancement and mechanics rather than the story. You can, of course, go otherwise, but it's just going to take a little bit more work to do so. So how does it compare to the West End Games D6 system? The D20 system is more balanced. It's easy to play because it's D20 and you're probably already familiar with D20. But I don't know. It's neither one's bad. I think DJ Wright did kind of rank the D20 system as the worst just because the other two are better.
Right, yeah. Not necessarily that's a bad game, but it's just I mean, in the first one, he pointed out that that's more of a Star Wars. It feels more like Star Wars, where this one is probably just going to feel like D&D in space.
Pretty much, yeah. And I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing,
right?
But it is a thing.
Yeah.
But then how does it compare to the Fantasy Flight Games system? Well, according to DJ Wright, it doesn't. The FFG system is better in just about every way.
Sure.
So that's what we're going to talk about next. So the Fantasy Flight Games encompasses Age of Rebellion, Edge of the Empire, and Force and Destiny. And I've heard a lot of people refer to Force and Destiny the most. So I think that's the one that the most people are playing.
So yeah, it seems like it has three different rule sets, but they're compatible. They're almost like releasing like 3 expansion packs that are all also their own standalone games.
Yeah. So with the FFG systems, it seems that it's kind of a whole bunch of things that seem like they should make it a bad game. Like I get 3 separate core rule books.
Sure.
It apparently has proprietary dice that rather than numbers has words on them, which we'll get to in just a moment.
Okay.
It's got classes, which, again, a lot of people dislike the idea of.
Sure.
A whole bunch of stuff like role-playing mechanics and whatnot. So a lot of stuff that seems like it should all be at odds with each other, but apparently it's a really, really good game. Again, I haven't played it, but this guy, DJ Wright, really, really likes it. I've seen good reviews about it from other people too on Reddit.
It seems to me pretty complicated, but it might just be, that just because like it's using those like proprietary dice and has 3 record, it might at the very least on the surface seems very complicated.
Right.
But I figure if you get to know it, it's probably pretty cool because if a complicated system is done right, it's at least once you understand it, you can do a lot with it.
And one thing that's very important to know about this is that this is a more narrative focused game rather than a simulationist game. We talked about a few weeks ago when Chris was on.
Dang.
We talked about running, the advantages and disadvantages of running a more narrative focused game as opposed to a simulations game, as opposed to a hybrid. This one seems to be more narrative focused. And so you do have a character, you do have a class and, mechanics and whatnot, but the players are able to influence the story. And then there's, mechanics around it. So like I'm guessing the players can influence the story one way, but then that lets the GM influence the story in a negative way and so on. And so, it's a cool idea that the players in this Star Wars game, where it's going to be very, very focused on like a very Star Wars story, the players are able to influence the story in order to, make it more of what they want. And then there's costs for doing so. So apparently it's really, really well balanced. Now, DJ Wright says that he has a character, which I guess is on the Dice for Brains podcast, which is that Star Wars podcast. His character, Zen Malik, is a pacifist who abhors violence, but can still pretty much hold his own against the more violence-focused characters. So like a character that seems like has such a completely different focus isn't useless compared to the characters that are more focused on something else. And that's really hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely hard to do in a D20 system because as I've tried to do, like I've always had cool ideas for character.
Yeah.
But they just don't, they're just not useful in pretty much every aspect of adventuring. Like it's a cool story, but it doesn't fit the rules.
Yeah. I'm always a little hesitant to make a role-playing based character in D&D whenever I start playing with a new group, because for all I know, I'm going to have this character that's all like skill-based and whatnot, and then I'm going to get there and it's like, okay, guys, roll initiative.
Right.
And, oh, great. And then, it's like, okay, here's combat, and then here's some more combat. Again, not that that's a problem.
Yeah. Gosh, Gabe, I thought you were good at D&D.
I guess. Like, not that having a combat-based game is a problem, but, different expectations.
Yeah.
And if you don't gear a character towards combat in a D20 system, they're not going to be good at combat. So if this game is able to still make you relevant even when that's not your focus, that's really cool. Yeah. That is definitely a great quality for a game.
For sure.
I guess character advancement is pretty fun and straightforward. They don't discourage you from picking up different specializations.
Sure.
Which that's really cool.
Yeah, like I always like the idea of multi-class, and it's hard to do in some systems because like you end up falling behind and you're not, you're kind of good at a lot of things, and that's the whole. He even mentions like the jack of all trades thing, where it's like you're just kind of good at everything, but there are plenty of people who are really good at the things that you can do. So yeah, and it seems that making a force user is relatively simple. There's a lot to it, but it's relatively simple, and it doesn't unbalance the game. Similar to like how the WEG system does. There is, I guess, so the way that their proprietary dice work is that every time you make a check, there are multiple things that can happen dependent on the dice. So there's, one person put it, every roll results in either success or failure on the action, advantage or threat that the player or GM can use for positive or negative side effects, and possibly triumph or despair symbols, which are similar to advantage and threat taken up to 11. Okay.
So I guess because of that, it's weird and it takes a little getting used to, but once you do, then a binary success or failure system just seems boring by comparison. That's how it was explained to me. But in any case, there's a lot of mechanics, a lot of which can be really cool, if used well. So it seems like this is it's a different type of game. It's not just another rehash of the D20 system. So it sounds really cool that people seem to really like this. I think this, if I was to play a Star Wars game, it would probably be this one.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'd lean towards trying the D6 one first, just because it seems simpler, just something easier to get into. And who the heck doesn't like throwing a bunch of dice?
Sure.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my draws to maybe getting into like Warhammer, because it's just like you just have a crazy amount of D6 that you throw out there if you got a big army.
Yeah. So as far as the cons of this system, it takes a little while to get used to the mechanics, to get used to how the dice work, the dice with all like the words and everything on them. I guess there's a lot of like, when this happens, you can cancel it by using this, and then you can cancel that by using this. And so learning how to use all of these things in conjunction with each other can take a little time to get used to. And DJ Wright said that he hasn't tried using characters from different books in the same campaign, so he doesn't know how well it all works together. But I guess it's possible. So whether that's a pro or a con, I don't know. Somebody else out there probably knows better than we do. So then how does it compare to the others? He says that he likes this one better than both of the others.
Sure. Yeah.
It feels more like Star Wars once you get into the guts of a story. It's pretty straightforward once you get your head around the mechanics,
Yeah, for sure.
So Force and Destiny seems to be the one that everybody likes the best.
Yeah, because if you're gonna play a different game, maybe if you're gonna go from playing like D&D where you're playing knights and dragons and stuff like that,
yeah,
and you want to I want to play Star Wars, you'd hope that it's like a different system altogether or something. If you go playing from D20 Dungeons and Dragons to D20 Star Wars, I feel like that's not a big enough jump. You might sit there thinking I could just be playing D&D right now.
Yeah. Whenever I'm playing one video game for a long time, and then I switch over to playing a similar but slightly different video game,
yeah,
it really throws me off because it's I want to attack by pressing this button, but instead I attack by pressing this button.
Sure.
But it's similar enough that I can't just remap what my brain is doing. If the controls were completely different,
yeah,
I wouldn't be, reaching for the triangle button. I would be reaching for L2 or whatever the heck.
Right. Yeah.
So it's if I was going to be trying to play a Star Wars game, I would probably want it to be something that is as different from D20 as possible, so I don't fall into the same D20 rut that I might be in. Well, I hope that we've done a good enough job of getting across, I guess, someone else's thoughts on these game systems. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm sorry that we don't have as much experience with this as I would like to, but there might be listeners out there that might hear us and then think, maybe I do want to try out one of these games.
Yeah. So take what we said with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm. And if you listen to this episode and you thought, hey, maybe I want to try out one of these Star Wars games, let us know. I would love to hear if this episode was helpful to anybody. I hope it was. I hope it wasn't just us poorly relaying some information from somebody else. But yeah, we've had this question for a long time, so now I can cross it off the list.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to imagine that I have a big chalkboard right here behind my computer that I can just... Chalkboard sound.
Oh, ow. I hate that noise.
Anyway, I think that'll do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, go to interpartyconflict.com. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, where I post weekly discussion questions for you. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict. We're on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you feel like donating, we have a PayPal donate button on our website. Anything you can give us would go towards making the show better. Jeff, do you want to tell us about FriendQuest?
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where we play video games. We have a couple playthroughs of the D&D arcade games.
Yep.
And we'll be putting on more as soon as we get around
as
to
we
it.
do. Maybe since I'm going to have a bit of time off for the holiday.
Oh, sure.
Maybe I'll get some stuff recorded then.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. You can head over to audibletrial.com/conflict and get yourself a free audiobook. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from. I guarantee you'll find something you like 100% for free. And also, if you take our short survey at bit.ly/interpartyconflict, you can get 2 free printable board games from Mary and Tom at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, till next time.
May the Schwartz be with you.